Hey there, welcome to Conversations About Adoption. This is your host, Jen, and I have today's conversation. Well, to start off with, I had a technical difficulty. I normally record this on my laptop with a microphone over Zoom. However, just before we were about to record, my computer was having some technical issues and I had to restart, and whammo, it had to do updates, which I don't even think were finished by the time we were done talking. So I quickly downloaded Zoom on my phone and sat my phone on my tripod and recorded the whole conversation through Zoom on my phone, which it was then saved to the cloud, and I downloaded. I could not use my microphone because I had to have my phone plugged in so the battery wouldn't die. So I am hoping that the sound quality is okay. So this conversation was with Valerie Naiman. She is an adoptee who has led quite an interesting life. She just finished her memoir called Mystic Masquerade, and she sent me an e-copy of it last night, the night before our conversation. And I downloaded it onto my Kindle and started reading, and it's really good. I'm not much of a reader anymore due to some personal issues. I've got ADHD, which makes it difficult, combined with some concussions that I've had that has made my ADHD worse. And reading is kind of difficult. I still love books. I collect them, and I still grab them off the shelf and look up things I need to, but I have a really hard time sitting and reading. Just the writing style of her book sucked me in, and I read the intro and the first chapter and the second chapter pretty much right away, and I was like, wow. And I don't normally plug books like this, but yeah, it anyway. And then combined with that, the conversation we had was amazing. It's not just about adoption, because she has lived a long life and done a lot of really interesting things and had lots of adventures, and we talk about a lot of that. She was involved in Broadway, and she sings, and she was a dancer, and she's just an all-around character. And she actually wrote a couple songs to help cope with her adoption, and she sang part of one to me, and I was moved to tears. You'll get to hear that in the episode. Yeah, I just can't even. It was a really great conversation, and I made a post on my Facebook page today that one of the wonderful things about making this podcast is the fantastic and fascinating people that I get to talk to. So make sure you are subscribed so you get notified when new podcast episodes drop, because everybody knows I'm extremely inconsistent. I'm trying to work on that. Yeah, I have another conversation I'm recording tomorrow. That'll be up sometime next week. I'm also going to talk to Rich Erlob. We're probably going to have two sections, one based on adoption reform and advocacy, and the other one based on his story about his musical that he's working on. And Emma Stevens is going to be on. So, like I said, make sure you are subscribed so that you will know when the episodes drop. And it doesn't matter where you listen on a lot of different platforms. If you subscribe on Spotify, even if you don't listen there as much, it will help me the most to get those numbers up, because then I can monetize the podcast a little bit, just run some ads. It doesn't make very much money, but even if it makes $30 in a year, that can pay for my website. So little stuff like that helps me a lot. So I guess without any further ado, I will present to you the conversation I had with Valerie Naiman, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And we get a little silly here and there, but it was just such a wonderful conversation. So I am talking with Valerie Naiman, and can you give me a little bit of background about yourself, Valerie?
Yes, I'm so glad to be talking to you today. My
Yeah, me too.
background is varied and it spirals all over the place. I'm pretty sure I was adopted in 1950, but my adoption papers are 1954.
Oh,
And uh, my hospital that's on my fake birth certificate has the wrong hospital code. So I'm not even sure about the hospital. And I mean, I'll start there. And I didn't know any of this till much later. I didn't even get any kind of birth certificate till I was it 22 when I had to get a passport. And that was awful because to get a passport, you have to have a birth certificate. And my parents
yeah.
never would talk, my adopted parents never would talk to me about it. You know, I asked once, my brother screamed about it, and I went to my parents and they denied it. And they said, you know, we're not talking about this. Why would you even ask? It's kind of like my father's side was Jewish and my mother's side was holistic, had the first health food store in Miami. My father's side was great-great-grandfather was one of the first rabbis in New York. So they were totally opposite. But they were very old when they adopted me. So when I asked, it was kind of like, oh, the do for you, slave for you, you never show appreciation here.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I always felt indebted to them, but they never really told me I was adopted. So I was really confused, but I was the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed person in the entire family. So, you know,
So
I
they
had
never acknowledged it?
no, no, no,
Wow.
no.
So you didn't even have like the birth certificate that they got when they adopted you, your
They
amended
wouldn't
one?
after my parents passed away, I found files. And in that, I also found a file of my father requesting the state of Florida for a birth certificate. And I mean, I think I was in high school by that time. I wasn't in the system. So that, you know, showed me right there they didn't have it. But when I ended up getting the one that they got, of course, that's the one that had the wrong hospital name on it or the wrong hospital code. My mother's name, my adopted mother's name was misspelled. There was so much that didn't match up. And so it's amazing that a birth certificate, you'd think that it would be a vital piece of paper that they're going to, you know, do the right thing. Back in the 50s.
I mean, I needed a birth certificate to register my kid for school. So
Yeah.
like I can't even, that's crazy. I
It
mean,
is crazy. I had no
y-
social security number, nothing like that. And I
wow.
found out that there was, you know, when I started researching all of this, the hospital I was born in, this kind of thing, I found out that there was a baby ring in the 50s in Miami. And there was this woman named Dr. Cole who, you know, took all these women, you know, poor or this kind of thing, having a baby and sold them illegally, made tons of money with no papers, no transfers, nothing. To this
Wow.
day, there's people that don't know who they are. And that woman went to her grave with that secret and it was all
That's
exposed.
that's like another Georgia tan.
Yeah, definitely. You know,
Wow.
so many different babies. So for a while, I thought I was what they call a coal baby. But let's see. I have barely gotten out of what my story is, but it's very complicated. And I did end up getting my passport. And when I was younger, I tended to be my mother's showpiece. I think she always wanted to be an actress. And so she was a show mother. Then I had every kind of class you can imagine. And so they would take me down to the Jewish restaurant on the weekends and put me on the table and I'd be there Shirley Temple tap dancing. So my whole life I was used to entertaining. And then I ended up, you know, in high school getting into theater, and then I won all these awards as an actress. And then I went on to get my Master of Arts in Theater Arts and worked on Broadway and did all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't know that what I was trying to do is find my identity.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It's like all of us adoptees, most all of us wear different masks at different times because there's not that solid base in us that connects us, because we were removed from all the smells and scents and feelings and sounds of our mother who birthed us.
Yeah.
And that, when you're ripped out of that scene, it's going to affect you. But there's no counseling for most adoptees. There's no understanding of what that is. There's more understanding for dogs, for goodness sakes. You're not supposed to take a puppy away from its mother for at least 2 months.
Yeah, right. That's true. There are that's the reason why I went back to school, is to I have more time ahead of me to do this, but my goal was to become a therapist for adoptees. And there's a lot more adoptees that are becoming therapists. And in fact, there's a oh God, I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but there is an adoptee who's a therapist, and she has a whole list of adoptees who are therapists that, if people ask for it, she'll send it to you.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't really believe anybody can be adoption competent unless they're an adoptee, because
I don't either.
there's no way to know what it's actually like unless you are adopted.
Right.
You can understand it logically, but it's not the same thing.
Right. Because it's part of us inside, and it's like it's embedded in us. No one else has that experience. So yeah, I think adoptee counselors are vital. And when I was looking, I wasn't able to find one in all the United States. And so when I finally, I have what I call my inner community. So I try and get consensus with my inner characters. And, they were all yelling at me. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do this search anymore. I got to do this. I got to do that. And one of my inner characters was, you know what, you need professional help. And that's the voice that did win. And that's when I found out there wasn't anybody at that time. And so I finally found a type of social worker. I forgot what his credentials really are, but he's written books about adoption healing, and he was doing a retreat in the Virgin Islands. Yes. So,
I went to one of his retreats.
Yeah, the one in Virgin Islands?
No. I went to one at his place in New York. Yeah,
I went to one at his place in New York a few years ago too. But the one in Virgin Islands was fabulous. It was so great. And it was only 7 of us. And that's the first time I'd been around adoptees. And and Joe Soul was like the only one back when I was doing this.
Yeah.
I've been searching for decades.
Yeah. So I went in 2013. I went to his place for a healing retreat. It was amazing. There was a reunited mother and daughter there. There was a woman who came all the way from New Zealand, a birth mom. It was really amazing.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I learned so much from him. That was the first time that I had even heard about the primal wound. When I started my search, there weren't even computers.
Wow.
It wasn't a thing. We didn't have cell phones and computers back then. So, I did a lot of paper shuffles.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and I've kept so many journals. Yeah, I've written a book about it. And if I didn't have all my journals and cassette tapes from psychics, there's no way I would remember what was before what and what was after what and the details of what happened. So I'm really excited. I finished the book and it's in pre-launch stage on my website. And I've just finished formatting it and sent it off to get approved. I'd show it to you. Are we on video?
Yes. I have the image. You sent it to me. And you sent me the the PDF of it last night, and I opened it in my Kindle, and I only read up to and part of chapter 2, and I was like pretty much sucked in right away. It's like I really appreciate the writing style.
Thank you.
And that whole opening scene of like your brother coming into the aviary and being like, they're not our parents, and like I'm like, oh my God, what a way to find out. Like I can't even imagine. Like oh, it hurts my head.
Yeah.
I was told when I was 5, my mom was like, well, you're in school, so we better tell you. And it didn't go well. I didn't react positively. I'm not one of those little kids that had tantrums. Like I would sit down and cry. I would get frustrated and cry. But I never really had tantrums, and I flipped out when my mom told me that I was adopted, and kicking and screaming, and where's my mommy? Why didn't she want me? And
Right, of course.
yeah, totally traumatized by that. And just like, I don't know. And it's funny because how like they say people that have experienced like a lot of trauma in childhood, when they try to reflect on their childhood, they don't remember a lot. Like there are certain instances where I remember every detail, but like everything else is kind of a blur. And I remember when I was a kid, I would be telling something to somebody and I would be like, oh, when I was such and such age and this happened, and when I was this and this age, and it was always 5 years old. It's like I got stuck there.
Wow.
And
That's
everything
interesting.
happened when I was 5. Like, I'm like, is that a
Wow.
psychological phenomenon or something?
Well,
Yeah,
that was
it's kind of
maybe
interesting.
that was the biggest trauma, and the biggest traumas are what's going to stay with us. And
Yeah.
we can heal it as much as we want, but the scar is always there, and it'll scratch open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It gets scratched open every so often, doesn't it?
It sure does. I got scratched open, and I did find my birth mother finally, and she didn't fess up that she was my mother, and she agreed to meet me.
Oh, wow.
Only, and it took a lot of coercing, but only if I'd agree to be a secret. So I remained a secret. I found her at 94. I found her at 94.
Wow.
And we laughed a lot. We talk alike and laugh alike, and we both loved to dance. We went out dancing. And
Aw.
she still drove and lived alone and was so independent. She was so queenie. But yeah, she ended up throwing a party for one of her somebody that she knew. I forgot who he was at this point. I was focused on other things, but she threw a big party and all the family came, and I posed as a photographer.
Oh, wow.
It was the most outrageous day of my life, trying to hold yourself together, and people are asking you questions, and you're just like shaking inside.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
My grandparents had their 50th anniversary shortly after I met them. It was like a month later. Like I talked to my grandmother on Monday. I met them on Wednesday. It was literally like bam, bam. Because they lived 20 miles from where I grew up. They weren't far away,
okay.
And yeah, and my brother, other people that listen to the podcast don't know this, but I went to high school. My own brother was at my high school. He got expelled from his, and his grandparents were raising him, and they wanted him to graduate. So they sent him to the next like closer school that had a good reputation and paid tuition.
Wow.
And so the last 2 years I was in high school, I got bullied by my own little brother. That was fun.
Oh my God.
I know.
I found out in the end that my siblings went to the same school as me too. And it's like, oh my God, what about, that, what do they call it? Genetic attraction?
Yep.
So, it just, you were bullied.
Scary.
This was your older brother?
No, he's 3 years younger than me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got one 3 years younger, one 3 years older. And then I got one sister 3 years older and one younger.
Wow. Yeah, my mother was 16 when she was pregnant with me, managed to stay in school and hid the pregnancy.
Wow.
It was a big lie, but like I found out last year. I met my aunts, my dad's sisters last year,
Uh-huh.
and the second to youngest one was actually best friends with my mother.
Huh.
And we were talking on the phone, and she was like, I knew. She's like, I knew that she was pregnant. She's like, I went with her story to defend her because, at that time, 71, if you're in school and pregnant, you're going to get expelled.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, so I defended her and told people know it. And I was a fibroid tumor was the story. But she said the one time she cornered my mother in the bathroom and she's like, look, I'm defending you everywhere. She's like, I need to know like what's going on, you know. And she stuck to her story and told my aunt that it was a fibroid tumor and then took her hand and put it on her stomach. And my aunt was like, I felt your head. She's
Wow.
like, I knew she was lying. She's like, but she was like, her mind was blown. She's like, I felt you. She's like, I knew that you were coming. And I'm
Wow.
like, that's the craziest thing that my own aunt like felt me in utero.
Right.
But all the, that shame and secrecy and all that. And I was delivered over spring break. She had surgery to remove the tumor over spring break. And that was that. Went back to school. So yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I don't see how you can hide 9 months of pregnancy.
Well, it was, the baby doll tops they wore in the 70s. And apparently my mom
Oh,
had a very slender build, and it wasn't
uh-huh.
super obvious.
How
So
much did you weigh when you were born?
I was like 5 pounds or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, we have some similar things going on.
Yeah. A lot of adoptees do. It's interesting. There's always these like commonalities, like differing details, but certain commonalities. It's pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah. I am so happy to be involved with the adoptee community. When I was going through my search, there wasn't an adoptee community that I knew of to plug into.
Yeah.
And because I'm either 69 or 73.
That's so
So
crazy you don't know. Oh my gosh.
my brother says, no, you're 73, my adopted brother. He's 3 years older than me. And so he's convinced that I am 73. And I kind of like not knowing. It's like I was born, supposing I'm both of my fake birth certificates on June 20th. And so that year was the summer solstice. And so I celebrate on June 20th and the summer solstice, which is sometimes the 21st, sometimes the 20th.
Sure.
So I get to have two different birthdays. So I just had one. And today is quite an interesting day. My mother would have been 100 today. This is her
Wow.
birthday. Yeah, today's her birthday. She passed away Christmas.
Oh, wow.
But I had 4 great years with her. And, she wouldn't tell me who he was, who my birth father was, all of this. And so, I had 3 DNA tests to run her down. The first
Wow.
test I had didn't tell me anything. My friend, you got a test with National Geographic, and how helpful it was for him. So I got a National Geographic geno test. They've taken it all offline now, so it's really aggravating. But I took that test and there was no matches, but I did learn that I have one of the highest percentages of Denisovan DNA or Denise, however you pronounce it. And I'm like, what's that? I've never
Yeah, I
heard
don't even know.
that.
I've never heard of that.
So many people haven't. So this was like 4 years ago when I was going through this, 4 or 5. And so I Googled, I had a computer then, and I'm Googling. And the first thing that pops up is meet the strangest hybrid in history. And I'm like, oh God, that explains it. I'm an alien, for goodness sake. That's why there's no records. It's like the angels came and mated with the pretty women type of thing. from the, but it's like, I mean, I got into religion, then I got into in college, and then I switched to philosophy and then back to religion. And then I thought, no, I was right the first time. It's all a drama. It's all the Leela. So then I went back into theater arts. But yeah, that blew me away. So that had me down some big rabbit holes for the next year, trying to figure out all that stuff. And I did find out that they were this mating. They only discovered this last decade. They found some finger bone and then some other things. They found some jewelry that's precisely drilled, jade pieces, this kind of thing. So yeah, I went down that rabbit hole pretty deep. And my mother said the first thing that she noticed about me, my adopted mother, was telling her, look, she has such a pointy chin and such long fingers. Like my hands are like a man's hand. They're put them up next to almost any man, and my hands are as big. And really? So, yeah, and I found out that the Denisovans have and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Some people say Denisovan, some say Denisovan, and named after some cave in Siberia, I think. But my mother said, look at her long fingers and pointy chin. So, yes, the better to get you with, my little.
Yes, very witchy.
Yes, I'm very witchy. My friend brought me over a coffee cup for my birthday of Dorothy and the Wicked Witch that Margaret Hamilton played in the movie. And
yes, I'll get you my pretty.
Exactly.
And your little dog too.
And your little doggy too, yes. And I was having such a hard time getting through all the formatting rounds. It's like it said on his face, oh my dear, some things take a little time. So I'm good with it now. I'm so happy to be over this hump. Writing it is one thing, but then all the stuff you have to think about afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of adoptees out there, and I want them to write. The more that's out there, the more we can spread the word, and the more different perspectives that we can see. And we do need to see different perspectives, because a lot of adoptees are deep into the trauma and haven't been able to get out yet. And so we need support. And I just want every adoptee to write about their story.
I've been planning on writing a book. I've been planning on writing a book, and I started a new strategy. So I made a folder on my desktop that has what my book title was going to be, which is the last thing my grandmother ever said to me. You focus too much on being adopted and you ask too many questions. It's going to be either one of those parts. And what I do is when I feel like writing, I sit down and I open a new Word document and I just let it pour out, and then I stick it in that folder. And so at least I get some ideas down, and, I can refine them later. Because I've been toying with the idea of writing a book for like 20 years, ever since I went through Reunion and but it's hard to like sit down and actually do it, So the strategy,
for me, I have to be inspired to do my writing. And I find that I do my best writing after no one is around, that nobody's going to be coming in the house.
Yeah.
And I usually like 9 or 10 o'clock, and then I'll write till 2. Especially in the winter when I have my fireplace going. That's my prime writing space. It just feels so good. Yeah. I encourage you to write. It's like doing what you're doing is great. It's like if I didn't have all the journals, I have stacks and stacks of journals from decades. And if I didn't have all of those, I don't think I'd been able to write this book.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There was so much. I mean, at one point I thought, oh my God, I've tried everything. I got 3 DNA tests and nothing is working. It's just too strange. And so I thought, I know what I'll do. find some psychics. And so my thought was, if I can get two psychics to give me the same mother's name, then I'll have it, right? So I found that the largest congregation of psychics in America live in Cassadaga, Florida. And that ain't that far from me. And so I drove to Asheville, and I drove to Cassadaga and stayed in the one room that they never rent out, but the hotel was full and they have one that's haunted. So nobody wants to stay there. And I thought, I don't care, I'm staying. So I had all these readings. I had 3 readings the next morning, and a couple more. And I think I had 5 or 6 readings altogether, and nothing. I mean, quite a few of them told me that they saw water, and my non-identifying information, which I got twice, did say that she was from the largest far western coastal state, so California, yeah. And, but the psychics, I have audio recordings of all that and my journals, and I didn't know until maybe 15 years later that a lot of it was true, because it didn't make any sense at the time.
Yeah.
And it so much of it came to pass. And the same thing happened with let's see, I forgot my train of thought is running off.
The psychics.
Yeah, the psychics. It was I highly suggest it for anybody who's stuck in a search, is to go to Cassadaga, find this woman, get a hold of me, and I'll tell you who the ones are that it worked well with. And
that's interesting.
It was amazing. And I did, I've done so many crazy things. And I did, then I think what I tried to do is start my own family. So I was a founder of, had a vision actually, and founded the first permaculturally designed and planned eco village of North America. It still exists. It's great. It's called Earth Haven Eco Village.
Interesting.
Oh, I've got a background noise. Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. And now my computer's going ding, ding. My Roomba woke me up this morning, smashing into my door. For some reason, decided to start, and I was up till way late last night doing all kinds of stuff, harvested honey, needed to do that. And just, I was trying to get my book uploaded to Ingram. One thing and another, pixels and widows and orphans, who'd have thought writing a book, you get to a point where you're really concerned about widows and orphans. And that's an author term. That's a writing term. It's like one word at the bottom of a paragraph, or something right in the middle with too much space. Widows and orphans. Now, they're going to call them widows and orphans. Goodness. Yeah. They call, I got goats, and everybody calls them kids, right? So
yeah, the babies.
Why do they call kids and goats kids? I don't get it.
I don't know either.
It's kind of mind blowing. But I have so many stories. I don't know where to start, and I'm kind of rambling through different parts of my journey.
It's okay. Did you ever do Ancestry DNA?
Yes, I did Ancestry after I did National Geographic Geno. Then I did Ancestry, and I had some third cousins and beyond. And I started, I was hoping for like a first cousin, because if you get a first cousin, you can get somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the first cousin can turn out to be a sibling, half sibling. So I just went for it. I got a printer, I got a Rima recycled paper. I printed out all these trees of these different people that were like third cousins, and tried to glue them together with somebody else that matched. And then this room I'm sitting here goes into my kitchen here. And by the time that I had printed these out, it started on this table I'm at and came out here, went through the kitchen out into my living room. It was like a patchwork quilt. my friend came over and he had to hopscotch to get in, and he's like, I'm going to bring you some banners. So he brought these giant, like 4 feet by 5 foot big banners that you could stick paper on, and then you could move it from one place. That was a lifesaver. But I had like 6 of those up, and it still dragged into the other room, and it drove me nuts. I wasn't getting anywhere. I thought I was a descendant of Ulysses S. Grant for a while. That didn't turn out to be right, and I would send messages to these people, and you got to be careful. You don't want to say, "Hi, I'm adopted, can you help me find who I am?" So I got nowhere with that. And then after another long time, I did 23andMe. I thought, well, there's one more, I might get a hit. So I did that, and I still didn't get anywhere. And I'm like, I don't get it. I got DNA, right? Where does it go to?
Yeah, where'd it come from?
Not these aliens that came down and were the Denisovans. I don't know. But I was determined. My girlfriend comes over, and she comes in, and she goes, she sees all the papers all over my house, and she said, I'm taking you to a movie right now. And so we left because there was a showing for Lion coming right up. So we left.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And when it got to the part where he's got things pasted up on the wall, I mean, his was nothing in comparison to what the patchwork I had going on. She like elbowed me in the movie and go, that's you.
Yeah.
It was such a great movie. I started in an adoptee group here in Asheville, and people would come once a month, and then we do something another time a month. And I bought that film and showed it to all of them. And it's a great film.
Yeah, it is truly. It's amazing how he was able to use the technology to, with his memory and landmarks and stuff like that to figure it out. It's truly, it's a very moving story. In the end, I bawl my eyes out every time, even though I know what's coming.
Me too. And it was portrayed so well by him, but the whole landscape and scenery. Oh, I know where I was in talking to you, that I created a family, right? So I had a vision, and I created Earth Haven Community, or I had a vision to start bringing people together. And then we opened Earth Haven Community, which is about 40 minutes from where I am now. I did 14 years of that. And then I ended up meeting somebody that was just intrigued me, a spiritual teacher. And then I ended up going to India for 2 weeks and threw away my return ticket and stayed 11 years.
Wow.
So I came back here about 4 years ago, and maybe it's been 5, and moved into this house I'm in, which is an old 1927 house. And I sold my place at Earth Haven. But I moved here. This was the way station. The 4 of us who had a vision together. It's another story. We were taking an Incan messenger, to visit with the Hopi elders to share their stories. And that night we all had the same vision, and we pieced it together the next day, and we made a pact that we would follow through. Wow. And that was the beginning of Earth Haven Eco Village, which was a crazy thing to do. I mean, I had opened a costume shop and balloon delivery service, the first ones in Asheville, North Carolina, and I ended up selling my business to throw it into this vision. And so, and we had bought this small place here at 6 acres and 5 houses in town in Asheville as a place for everybody to move to. And so when I came back from India and my house was rented out at Earth Haven, I sold it and moved in here and fell in love with the property and enjoying that. But it was like, in retrospect, I tried to create a family and never leave me.
Yeah, it seems like it, huh? Did you ever, get married or anything like that, or have kids, or no?
I did some fake weddings. Never ever sent any papers in. The idea of getting married it's like what would I tell kids if I had them? Like, oh, you're an alien. I just never felt like confident about having children. I just didn't know enough about myself. And so, no, I didn't do that. When my mother was dying of cancer, her kind of dying wish was to see me get married. And I was the costume designer for the Coconut Grove Playhouse at the time. During Equus, it was the world premiere of Equus. And so I told the technical director, we were good buddies, and he said, let's do it. My mother wanted me to get married and settle down.
Your adoptive mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we threw a wedding. Didn't do the papers anywhere. And then we had, we were, I didn't want to be indebted to him either. So we made the agreement that whatever he wanted to do for the next 3 years, I'd do it. And so we were together 3 years, and then we split. But he wanted to go sailing, and I thought, oh, that's great. So that night after the wedding, the next day after the wedding, we had a 40-foot Alden cutter sailboat, and we just kind of sailed up into the sunset. And
wow.
Yeah, my parents thought, oh yeah, they're going to be grandparents soon. But no, that was not in the equation. Yeah, I did it a second time too. I've done it a couple of times, and just it's hard if you're a real independent woman. You're trying to live alone. When I left the film and television industry, I came to North Carolina, of all places, and lived in a 100-year-old cabin and tried to learn to chop wood, carry water, and it was, crazy. It was the wood stove caught on fire, and I'm thinking, you're going to have a relationship. This isn't going to work. You're going to have to do that. So I did. And met a guy picking apples, and there you go.
Sounds like your life's been quite an adventure.
Yeah.
So your book, is it mostly just your like adoption memoir, or does it cover like a lot of different adventures in your life?
It is an adoptee search for truth. And so it covers a lot of area, and it does take you around the world as well, because it was all related. One together, my 11 years in India, I found my spiritual father. That's what he was to me. And so I'm trying to open Stephen King's book and read you my contents. I wrote my book around Stephen King's. He has typos and orphans and widows. And he's funny.
So funny.
But I just wrapped it around so I could see what it would look like,
Yeah.
Some of my printouts of my inner part of my book. Sorry, I'm making noise here.
It's okay. I'm not picking up any of it.
Okay.
It was so funny, to get an email from a publicist. I was like, oh, wow. Because that's not like a very common thing. My podcast is still very, very tiny, has a very, very small audience. It's slowly growing, but like just totally shocks me to like get an email from a publicist. I'm like, wow.
She's been really sweet and great, and that was her idea. We need to get you on podcast because the way you talk is amazing. So, plus I have story songs. If you get on my website, valerieneyman.com, you can see some of the story songs of my adoption. The one I put up there, I'm singing to my mother, and it's like, I never seemed to belong, so I coped by being strong, thinking I could do it all by myself. But I was so wrong. It's connection I needed all along. You let me go, but the bond remains, 'cause your blood is running through my veins. You stole my identity on my birthday. So I learned to role play, making myself up all along the way. Well, is the character I become a lot like you? Do I walk and talk and sing the blues like you do too? Anyway, I'm
Oh
doing,
my
I was
gosh.
a singer and I've been in a band and this kind of stuff, and I love to write songs. And so I've written songs throughout the year during my search. So in
That was really
addition,
moving.
in the addition to my book, it's a book, ebook, audiobook. I've already recorded the audiobook except for the last few chapters, and just did it myself since I've done voiceover before. So that worked. Still looking for I just have so many notes and stuff of my thing, but my book, you can hear a chapter of the audiobook on my website too. It starts out, there's 5 parts: selfdom, questing, allure, and is it missing links? And I gotta find the last one. Where's my book when I need it? I don't have a book yet, so I'm waiting for it. It's in my computer. But
Did you ever sing that for your mom, or
yeah.
what'd she think?
Oh, she was amazed at everything I'd done. She goes, no, people won't believe what you've done.
Wow.
Our thing was dancing. We loved to dance. And so that's one of my chapters. It's not about my mother, but it's called Dancing in and Out of Character and Myths. And the wish is about my mother's wish to see me get married, and identity theft, and revolver persuasion, which is what kicked me out of my film and television life. And then I get into the questing part, which is the esoteric guidance from numerous others, including some I just told you about, the going to Casadega to see the psychics. And then there's a piece about Asheville, some funny stories about Asheville and my vision quest and working with different shamans and researching different prophecies, and then Earth Haven. And so there's a thing about that. And then I ended up living with the Maori tribe in New Zealand, which was a freaky thing. And another one called The Amulet. And then India Beckons is when I get to India. And
I think there needs to be a documentary about your life.
My friend, who's a documentary filmmaker, she actually documented something I did in India. I got plastic bags banned at the largest gathering in the world.
Wow.
It was the Kumbh Mela 2010. You can Google it on YouTube. I think it's Say No to Plastic Bags, Kumbh Mela 2010. You'll know me. I have a big red wrap around my head, which is a whole other story of what happened in India. But yeah, getting that done was just such a mission. So for me, it was like in India, my teacher became my father, and my mother became the sacred Mata Ganga, the river, and seeing all the people polluting it and what happened, it would bring tears to my eyes. So I fought, and I learned Hindi and some Sanskrit. And so the media ate me up. My teacher didn't even know I could sing. And one of the first days I was there, I was invited to go with him some places, and there's like thousands of people, and I get pushed up on stage with him, sitting behind him, and he moves me forward. And when he was through talking, he looks at me and he goes, "Sing." And I'm like, he doesn't even know I sing. That was one of the beginnings of so many miraculous things that happened in India. And also getting some ancient astrology readings. There was so much that happened, and it's all connected to my adopted life.
Wow.
All sinks in. Then after India, let's see, Grace and Renunciation. Oh, and then I ended up in the Amazon jungle doing ayahuasca. And
oh man, that's something that seems like it'd be amazing to try.
Yeah, I've done it twice. I strongly promote psilocybin, ayahuasca, the natural substances that are here on this planet.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to anything that isn't natural, but if you can be in a good space and have a good person with you to support your energy while you're doing that, because a lot of people are scared to do something like that the first time.
Yeah.
But it can open up so many doors.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing, psilocybin is my go-to. If I am totally stuck, I'll usually do a visioning once or twice a year.
It's
And
really interesting how like psychology is starting to, they're
finally,
trying to get laws passed or get things changed so that they can do more research on psilocybin as like, treatment for depression and things like that. And I think that's pretty fascinating. I had a psychology professor who wrote a paper about microdosing
nice.
and, to treat depression and things like that. I found it pretty interesting.
Fabulous. I mean, it's such a healing modality, and they have enough information. It's just that the pharmaceutical companies don't make money on it, and it's all about money. I just don't do doctors.
Really?
I have a belief that there is a cure for every ailment, unless you're in a car accident or something.
Yeah, right. A traumatic injury.
I broke my wrist in two with a hole. I won't tell you how it happened, but anyway, it broke into and I had to go to I for 2 days. I wasn't even. So my friend said, "I'm taking you to get it checked out." I said, "It's not broken. It's not broken." Well, it was broken in two. I let them take an X-ray, and they wanted to give me surgery, and so I had a big cast on it, and it's like, oh God. Then they gave me one with bells and whistles, some of the new casts that you can almost sing to it or something. But I started researching it, and I found out that you can actually diagnose whether something is broken or fractured by yourself with a tuning fork. So I got every kind of tuning fork there was. And there's one that helps heal broken bones. And sure enough, when I went back to the doctor to check after that. They wanted me to do the surgery. And I said, no, but I want to see if it's improved. And sure enough, it improved. And
wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, it started fusing back together. I mean, it took longer than, surgery, but I had my Darth Vader glove on and so what?
Way less invasive.
Yes, I'm scared of doctors. I have fainted at the sight of blood since I was an infant. And so, even when I was a young lady and I got my period, I would faint if I saw blood. My brother, my antagonist, he was like, "She's got it again."
Oh, my God.
Like, oh God.
Thanks for the announcement.
Yeah. And then I would go into seizures later in life and whatever. And then I got into Edgar Casey. So my parents just would drag me to the doctor and I just faint anyway. And they gave me all this medication and I wouldn't take it. I just pretended I wasn't going to. I never trusted doctors.
Yeah. I had a lot of medical trauma. Because, of course, when you're adopted and there's no medical history,
right?
They've got to throw everything at you if there's an issue to figure out what's going on. And my growth was kind of stunted. And because my adoptive dad had like issues with his pituitary gland, like that's where he went in his mind. So I got, taken to this growth hormone specialist every 6 months for several years, and every single time it was traumatic because they would x-ray my wrist. That's not a big deal, but then he'd want to look in my underwear to see if like I have and then like feel my chest to see if I have breast buds, and then they've got to draw blood, and every single time it was like the entire staff had to hold me down because I was kicking and screaming and fighting.
I get it,
which was really traumatizing because it was over and over and over again. Wow. And about 13 years ago, I had a situation where a doctor almost killed me. I'll try to keep it short because this is for your story. But I have asthma and I have aspirin sensitive asthma. And I went thinking I had a a tubal pregnancy because I had pain and I didn't have any medical insurance at the time. And they didn't do anything for me other than a pregnancy test. And he goes, you're not pregnant. You probably have a cyst that's rupturing. And he said, I'm going to give you something for pain and nausea. And the thing he gave me for pain was made from aspirin. So
Oh no.
fast forward a day and a half later, I had kidney and liver failure.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
so I
God.
spent 8 days in the hospital, 4 days in critical care, which is their equivalent of ICU, and then 5 weeks on uh, dialysis.
Oh, you poor thing. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And the kidney doctor said because of my age, and it was like an acute thing because it was caused by something, that I would recover. And I did, thankfully. But,
Oh my God.
that just, it got me over my fear of needles
Oh my
because I was
God.
incapacitated. So I couldn't do anything. And I was getting poked 100 times a day in different ways. And
I'm
so
sorry you had
that's,
to go through that.
yeah, that's one way to get over fear of needles. But
Oh
what's
my-
crazy is, like I'm not a religious person. I grew up Catholic, and I always joke. I was like, yeah, I was raised Catholic, so now I'm a cynic.
A lot of them are.
Because I've seen things in like my family and stuff that were like, wait, this is Catholic? Okay. And so I kind of, as soon as I was confirmed, you go through confirmation in Catholic church, and my adopted mom was like, well, in the eyes of the church, you're an adult now. If you don't want to go to church anymore, you don't have to. So I quit, and so I put my time instead into like volunteering and stuff like that.
Good for you.
And
Fabulous.
and now I lost my tangent.
You lost your train too.
Yeah, I always wanted to have kids, and or I wanted to at least have one. But I have polycystic ovarian, and so like I just would get no cycles like for years, nothing. And after I went through that episode, I had like a cycle the following, like that was in September. The following January, I had a cycle, and I asked my doctor about it. And like, what do you think about like going through pregnancy after this whole kidney thing? And she's like, well, go to Women's Health and get checked out and see what they say. So I did. I skipped a month, and then the following month I had a cycle, and they're like, well, we're going to do ultrasounds and this and that and just check you out. And she wanted to put me on Clomid, and I'm like, I do not want twins. I want one. I just, and I know I probably don't know what I'm talking about, but that's like a fear I have. Any fertility drugs, you can result in multiples. And so she's like, well, I'll give you this, and you take it at the beginning of the month. You take a pregnancy test, and if you're negative, you take this pill for 10 days, and it'll force you to have a cycle and ovulate. I never needed to. I got pregnant on my own, like before I even had. Yeah, and it was like, I feel like it was meant to be, So I had my kiddo just literally 3 months shy of 40. So yeah, it's kind of old to have a child, but yeah. And my adoptive parents were older too. So like I get that whole, my dad was 12 years older than my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. And like he was born in 1926 and she was born in 37. So I had silent generation parents. And yeah, it's just interesting. And then my biological parents are boomers, my dad is still around. He's a boomer.
Wow. Wow, I was thinking you were younger because now you something you said earlier that 4 years ago when you were in college.
I'm 52 and I just graduated in May.
Oh, so. Okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah.
What did you graduate with?
Bachelor's in social work.
Well, that's fabulous. You'll be you're a good listener. You're a good talker. You know those woes of adoptees. So we need more and more counselors in that respect. So
yeah, I've been advocating for, I wouldn't say necessarily adoption reform, but like trying to educate the public on the false narrative of adoption, that it's inherently all good, because everybody wants to believe that, that it's this great thing,
Oh
and it
yeah.
is extremely flawed and needs to be, but
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like an uphill battle, a losing battle, and I don't know if it's ever going to stop, especially with them overturning Roe v. Wade. And I saw this video on TikTok yesterday where this woman who has no affiliation with adoption at all, but she writes a newsletter about abortion like every week or something. And she's been doing a lot of digging. And she's like, they are basically trying to recreate the baby scoop again.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
going to use all those Christian crisis pregnancy centers and open maternity homes,
It's
you
terrible.
know, to coerce,
Ah,
vulnerable women.
right.
And I interviewed, or not exactly interviewed, but I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with Lisa Elaine Scott, and she is making a film right now called
Nice.
All You Have Is Love,
Uh-huh. Oh,
about
I saw that somewhere. Yeah.
about exposing the adoption industry and for what it is and how it does its practices. And so I'm very excited for that.
I hope she gets good funding behind her. Yeah.
Well, they just hit their first goal. She had a seed and spark campaign, and the goal was 25,000, and they had to get to at least 80% for her to get the money, and they
Uh-huh.
got it.
Great.
So now
Right.
she's going on it. She said it's going to be a $250,000 project ultimately, because she wants it to be very high quality so that it gets
Right.
out there in the public eye.
Yeah, and 250,000 is not much to produce a good documentary.
Right.
Just
Right.
there's a lot to it. I've done a few documentaries too, and so Mayan teachings, things like that. But it takes a lot.
Yeah.
This woman who recorded the whole thing at the Kumbh Mela when I got plastic bags banned. She was a documentary filmmaker, and we became really good friends. And so
Yeah.
she's recorded some of my life. She wants to do a documentary, but she lives in Amsterdam, so I don't know when that's going to ever happen.
Right.
Back to the
Right.
bloody thing, it's like when I finally did meet my mother, I
Yeah.
asked her, I said, I fainted all my life, and I just freak out when I see blood. And so I asked her, I said, did you ever faint? And she's like, oh, I don't remember anything. I don't remember going to the hospital. I don't remember having you. And I don't remember all the pain you gave me. I thought, oh my God, that laid me flat. That was,
She doesn't remember all the pain. She can
yeah,
say that, but she doesn't remember it.
right. Exactly. Right. Well, she even didn't admit that, who my father was too. And I found him.
Did you?
Yeah. And she had given me a name, nothing matched up in any of my 3 DNA tests. It's like, yeah. So was it Mother's Day? April Fool's was either, I don't remember, April Fool's. It was either Easter or Mother's Day. It was a holiday, right? And
Yeah.
I called her and I played a joke on her, and I said, hey, you know what? You're going to be so excited. I found my birth father, and he is so handsome. Oh
Oh my
my goodness. And he wants to see you again, and blah, 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 blah. And she goes, oh, who is it? What's his name? What does he do? Where does he live? And I'm like, Mom, this is my time to ask the questions. So, do you want to meet him? And she would just hemmed and hawed, this went on for quite a while. And then finally she said she would want to meet him. And so when I hung the phone up, it's like, well, it's a good thing it's April Fool's.
Ah,
But then I knew there was the possibility it could be somebody else, right?
wow.
So following on the name, it's like she ended up lying about her name on the birth certificate. She lied
Wow.
about so much stuff. Even when I found her, it's like for my birthday, she wanted to know what I wanted. And I said, I want you to sign these papers so I can get my birth certificate. So she did. And I sent it in. And then when I got it back from Florida, Vital Statistics, Florida's awful to try and find your information.
Yeah, I've
But
heard.
when I got it back, it said, well, you filled the forms out right. But that is not the name on your birth certificate. I'm like,
Wow.
and so anyway, I ended up, it's too long of a story to go into, but I finally, and to this day, she said I would never lie and something like that.
Yeah.
But I ended up finding my father through a fluke. Somebody had put up, how I found my mother is somebody put up a tree, but they hadn't tested. So they put up a tree for who they thought everybody was. And that kind of led me into finding my mother. Plus I had help. In the end, I got a search angel. I had gone to the Adoption Congress in Atlanta and just eating it up. And I still hadn't found anything. I think I'd been searching the longest of anybody there. And I ended up meeting a woman named Mary who became my search angel. She's in Texas and she doesn't do anything except in Texas, but she said she'd help me. And
wow.
She did. And so but even her and Lana of the DNA detectives, I was in these groups by then, and they weren't able to find anything. And they got some other avenue. They have some other detective to look, and they couldn't find anything. It's like I was like hopeless case. And so when I finally did find my father, who was even more elusive than my mother, I ended up flying to Vegas and meeting my brother and sister there.
Wow.
And rejection from, you'd think that your sisters are the one that's going to embrace you.
Sometimes.
For me, both my brothers embraced me, both my sisters, no. And so one sister we spent a day or so, but her husband was like, what do you want to know any of this for? Some people don't like you being here and da, 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 da. So that was the end of that. And I had made a big tree when I found her, and we went into her tree and she had thousands of people in the tree. And then we changed passcodes for our trees, whatever. And after I left, he took her away, so I couldn't be with her. And then when I flew back, it's like my trees were wiped off my account that I had spent years building.
Wow.
And hers, I was blocked from hers.
That is so sad. Why are people like that?
That was like mean.
What harm does it do to share the truth? I don't understand that.
The truth, yes. It's that's why my subtitle is An Adoptee's Search for Truth.
Yeah.
That search for truth took me in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
All kinds of medicinal areas, and a bigger truth of not only who I am as an individual, but wait a minute, who are we as a species, please? But Atlantis, Lemuria, all of these things, it's proven, and we have all of this propaganda bullshit that we're told, like Columbus discovered America, bullshit. So my book it kind of branches out into the truth. What is the truth? And I think it's going to be helpful for adoptees to read, actually, because I have like a manifesto, it comes into a manifesto about adoption and my perspective. So it's exciting. I'm really glad to do this book. I'm really excited you're writing a book. Just keep plugging at it little at a time. And then when you're ready, you'll be ready.
Yeah. You said you were involved in Broadway. I just wanted to let you know, I emailed you a link that something you might be interested in.
Okay.
When there was a summit in April called Untangling Our Roots, it was put on by two groups.
Yes.
I was able to go.
Oh, I'm so glad.
There was a Rich Erlob. I don't know if you know who he is. He's pretty active in the adoption reform angle of things. But he is working on a Broadway musical, hopefully Broadway, a musical about adoption.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I have numerous songs I've written about it. What's his last name? Rich?
Urlaub, Uhrlaub. He's going to be on my podcast also sometime in the middle of July.
Okay, great. That's great. And I'm trying to keep that up in my mind and take a look. And we need stuff like that. I got contacted by somebody. HBO is doing a series of called DNA Surprises.
Really? So, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, with real people, with real adoptees and things. So that'll be interesting to see, I mean, the funding to HBO, are they going to allow the truth to be shown? We don't know that yet. But the more that it's out there, the better. I mean, some of these shows I was watching a couple of years ago, I don't watch television actually, but I'd go over to my girlfriends and watch these shows. I forgot what it's called, of different reunions and all of this stuff. Most of them have happy endings. They try not to show the ones that are terrible, but that was like the only thing out there that you could watch. And
there was that series on TLC where they do the searches, based on ancestry.
Right.
And,
that was it.
It's really nice. And it blows my mind how a show like that is successful. Everybody loves these reunions, but when adoptees are out there talking about things that people should be thinking about when it comes to adoption,
right.
Like they're like, shut up. You get called every name in the book. You're told you're ungrateful. Would you have rather been aborted? All that kind of nasty stuff. And it's like, really? I have a really hard time understanding how people can just believe that infants are just interchangeable. It doesn't matter. Just as long as they have parents, that's all that matters, and it's like, I don't get it. And then they throw things at you like DNA doesn't matter. And I'm like, then why does Ancestry DNA make so much money every year if it doesn't matter?
Right. It's like, I forgot what the statistic is. The most recent, I looked it up, but it's amazing. And the majority of people are either adopted, have adopted, are in an adopted family, or have a close friend that's adopted. That's the majority of the people in the world.
It's huge. Yeah. But yet 2% of Americans are adopted, I think. But it's crazy because there is no federal oversight. They have no idea how many adoptions happen every year.
Oh,
and
I know.
That really bothers me.
I've written to some of the biggest, right? Asking for statistics. They don't have them. They don't want them. It's such a money-making launder system of selling babies, no doubt.
Oh, 100%.
When I found I found a receipt from the lawyer for my adoption. I'm like, does that make me feel like a slave or what? And you want to please your parents, right? You owe them type of thing. And then,
no, we don't owe them anything. They made that choice.
Right. But that's what, as a child, we may think that. I know I did.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
sure.
I don't think I felt that, but I do think that's like a generational thing also. Maybe like with an older generation, you were more obligated to feel like you owed them because they're taking care of you. But like the way I look at it, if you choose to have a child or get a child or whatever it is, that's your responsibility. It's on you to do the job to take care of them. And they don't owe you gratitude for doing your job. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
so like,
unfortunately, it's like it's the adoptee who needs the most support and help. Yes. And unfortunately, it's the adoptee who is the one that's going to turn this battle over. It's the adoptee tribe that is going to expose it all and bring it to light. And nobody else is going to do it. So we just have to keep moving forward. And the more we join together, the better. The more books that are written about it, the better. The more that we can, support one another in the adoptee triad. And it's great. I mean, I have one friend who wanted the experience of having a baby and didn't want to raise a kid. So she did that and then gave the baby away and freaked out. And was finally able to get her baby back again. And oh my goodness, the trauma, like she's been in all these sides. So I've been a support system for her. And then there's, the adoptees who are confused about who they are, or they don't have a connection really with a mother and father. And then there's, quite a few of them that become transgender or change their identity and have surgeries to be something else, because there's that base core of, who am I? Where did I come from?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a friend, Joey. He made a little documentary he's an Ohio adoptee. And when the records were opened, he made a little documentary about getting his birth certificate and doing his search and everything. And it was very moving. It was very moving. And it was such a big deal. Like, the most moving aspect of that film was on the first day that adoptees could go to Vital Statistics in Columbus and get their original birth certificate. There was a line out the building and around it.
Oh, I'm sure. My God, what's the name of his film?
It's called Who Am I Really?
Who Am I Really?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
I might have seen that already, but
yeah,
I love to watch
Joey,
stuff like that.
Joey Ashbridge.
I got goats and chickens and honeybees, and my life is so full. I want more time to, watch movies and documentaries, which I haven't had time. I'm going to go to Nashville to the lifting the fog, because it's 3 hours
with Rebecca Autumn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I got to meet her at the summit too. She was on my podcast also. I have a conversation with her, and it's a very moving film. There's another one too that they showed at the summit called The Ghost Kingdom. Oh my gosh. He made it all on iPhone.
Wow.
And I think you can get it on Vimeo, and it is really, really moving. It's like basically a one-man show. He does it all himself. He plays all the different characters.
Wow.
And he really captures the emotion of that searching phase. And it's amazing. The fact he did it all on an iPhone during the pandemic was amazing too.
Yeah. Well, the iPhones have such great cameras on them now. I'm going to start doing some videos. I just posted one on Instagram about why I wasn't able to launch my book on summer solstice. So now my new actual book launch, because I'm going to have it up on Ingram, I think, within the week. And but my actual launch is going to be the super blue moon, brightest moon of the year, in August. So that's August 30th. It's a Wednesday. I'm going to throw a big party here too. Have a big venue here, and I'll be playing music, have some musicians, read a little of my book, and have a good time.
That's great. Are you going to be doing any traveling around the country and doing promotions and book signings and things like that?
I'm not promoting myself to do that. But if I got asked, I would. I was supposed to go and speak at the Adoption Congress and giving a workshop called Beyond All Odds. And then the pandemic hit. That's when I found my mother. And so, and sing some of my story songs, adoption story songs. So they haven't got it together for this year to have a venue. So I don't know. Supposed to be, I put it on my website that it's happening, but I don't know if it is or not. Yeah, I want to go to areas where other adoptees, and like going to Lifting of the Fog. I mean, I've seen the movie already, but my friend who gave away her child and got it back wants to go, and so we're going to do a double drive and Asheville to Nashville.
That'll be nice. They did announce that there's going to be another summit next year. It's going to be in Colorado. Yeah, I wish it was still going to be in Louisville, because that was a little bit more accessible for me. I was able to drive there, but But yeah, it's going to be in Colorado next year in Denver. And I think it's in April sometime. I'm not sure the exact dates, but
Uh-huh.
it was amazing to go. And I'm so glad that I got to go. I got to meet all these people that I've been talking to online through social media that are in the community. And it was amazing. So many hugs. I got to meet Renee of Saving Our Sisters
Huh.
and it was
That's
and
fabulous.
Rebecca Autumn and so many people.
I want
And
to do that. I want to do that. My life has been so busy. I'm trying to free myself up. But once this book, because I've been working on this book for what, 4 years, and
yeah,
just to get to the final formatting's done. I'm about
yeah,
to launch.
it
Yes.
looks good. I like the font, and
Thank you.
yeah, I really I'm going to be reading more of it because it just really sucks me in. And like I said, I kind of have issues with reading because my brain gets tired, but I'm gonna try and force my way through it because it's so good. Like already in
Oh,
the small
thanks.
section that I'm into, I'm like, oh my God, I love this. So
Thank you. Well, I'd love your feedback. If there's any place where it slows down for you or whatever, if you just let me know. Not that I can do anything about it at this point, but
yep.
I am in the process of writing 2 other books. One
Oh,
is
you
Earth
are?
Haven. Yeah, one is How We Did Earth Haven because it's internationally famous now.
Oh,
The community that I
yeah, yeah,
tried to
yeah.
build that would never leave me. And then the other one is called 108 Insights. And so it's more into, spiritual day-to-day things, like one sentence on each page with photos and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If you ever make your way to West Virginia, there is you were talking about India. There is a Hare Krishna community in
Uh-huh.
Moundsville, and they have what's called the Palace of Gold and New Vrindavan. It's
Uh-huh.
amazing. It's probably like a little chunk of India has been sat here, in West Virginia, and it was completely built by devotees of Krishna. All for Krishna. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. They've got this
Wow.
little like,
I'll have
swan
to see that.
pond and peafowl walking around, and there's cabins you
Yeah.
can rent. And they do like a free vegan buffet lunch for like anybody that comes every single day. It's pretty amazing what they've done there.
And I'll have to go there. I don't think I've been there. I've been up to the lotus temples and that kind of thing. And that's exciting. And you said it's called Vrindavan. And so I did a lot of work in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the place of Krishna's birth and his playground. And so one of the reasons I stayed in India so long is one day I saw an infant on the street with a dog chewing on its ear. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is happening in the world I live in.
Yeah.
So I jumped into working on these projects. One was in Vrindavan called Vatsalyagram. Vatsalya means mother's love, and
Mm-hmm.
gram means place. So the place of mother's love. So I had just done 14 years of learning how to start an eco village and learning all that skills, going from a costume designer to a singer to an actress to that. And
Yeah.
oh, geez, I had all these skills. And one thing in India is there doesn't seem to be any organization at all.
Yeah.
You get on a road, I mean, all the cars are going like this. There's no right, there's no left, there's no lights. There's, at least when I was there, and I lived in northern India, except for this time in Vrindavan, setting up communities
Yeah.
that are alternatives for orphanages, single women, because
Mm-hmm.
they're shunned in India, and
Yeah.
elders who have no family. So put
Huh.
them together in a family unit, and it
Interesting.
worked great. It worked great. So, there might be 5 kids in a family or more. And it was all
Building
women. There
families.
was no men in the family. It was
Huh.
just all women, grandmothers, aunties, mothers, and all the kids. We had schools and all kinds of programs and playgrounds, and it was a crazy adventure, and it became very popular and is now all over India. So
Wow.
I kind of passed my hats I don't know how much I wrote about it in the book, but there's some in there called India Beckons. And yeah, so it's very successful. And the government, I mean, I was just raising money by donations. And
Wow.
so in the government was like, hey, this works. We want to put one in every state. So
Wow.
they're called vatsaliograms. And yeah, it's like kind of a co-housing type of thing, like one building with like 4 different apartments or more, and then numerous buildings like that, and then the communal areas for different things. So it worked really good. I don't know how I got started. Oh, because you said Vrindavan. So
Yeah.
that was the buffet.
So that's how it's pronounced. I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. Can you say it again?
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan. Okay, we've been calling it
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan because we don't know Sanskrit.
Right. Vrindavan. Yeah, I learned
New
Sanskrit, so I learned it because I wanted to learn the language, and so
Yeah.
I mean, I could act out a lot and people could understand me, but then I got to learn the language, and it's a beautiful language. So I think like Sanskrit should be taught in every school. It's an educational language. Take the word for enemy. The word for enemy, my computer's beeping, is dushman. Dush means bad, crap, no good. Man has 2 meanings. So man means mind, and it also means heart.
Oh, wow.
And the translation of it is, if you have an enemy, it's you that has the bad mind and heart.
Wow.
Because the mind and heart are not able to be divided. So, most of us let our minds rule us. And so that this is one of my books, the 108 Insights, is just every day to kind of like bring you into that awareness again of being who we really are.
Wow. Wow. Okay, they've got to definitely make a documentary about your life because
thanks. Yeah, it's a couple of people have said that, and they've suggested people to play me. I said, I'll come in at the end, Nancy Verrier.
No. A documentary, not a movie, like a documentary where they're talking to you and you're telling your stories. That's what it should be.
Yeah, I think that my book itself, and I took chapters out of this. That's what took me so long. It was 52 chapters. And
oh my gosh.
Just, what they call it in the writing world. We don't want to say it. It's kill your babies. It's like you've written all this stuff and this is your baby, right? And then you got to go through and just take them out. And so I have 33 chapters now, 33 or 34, and it was 50 something. So I've cut a lot out. There's stories within stories that
you could take all that and make another book.
Oh, I know.
Like, here's the excerpts that I didn't leave in the original one. So
yes, right. I can do a sequel.
Bonus content.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So I hope we can meet up at one of these conferences or something. That'd be great.
Yeah. It was really great talking to you, and I'm gonna really enjoy digging into your book more.
Oh, great. Just read a chapter a night. I broke them up so that there is sub chapters. So you can read a piece and think, okay, I'm going to pick it up tomorrow there.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So, all right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for making time to talk to me and being on the podcast. And I will let you know when it's up.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah. I want to hear more of your story too. It's quite outrageous.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk later. Bye.